The neighborhood was built on symmetry and strict control. Every lawn looked like it had been measured with a ruler, every driveway scrubbed until it gleamed, and every porch carried the same approved decor. The HOA prided itself on these rules, and to many, the rules felt suffocating. It started with a simple flag. One resident, tired of conformity, hung a bold banner from his front porch. To him, it was nothing more than a symbol of pride and identity. But in a community where uniformity was law, the flag was treated like an act of rebellion. Karen, the loudest voice in the HOA's ranks, spotted it first. She marched down the street with her clipboard in hand, snapping photos and scribbling notes. She claimed the flag violated aesthetic guidelines and disrupted the harmony of the neighborhood. To her, it wasn't about the fabric waving in the wind, it was about control. Within days, an official letter arrived in the residents' mailbox. The HOA had issued a fine, crisp and undeniable. It demanded payment and removal of the flag. To most, this would have been the end of the matter. Pay the fine, take down the flag, go back to blending in. But this time something was different. The resident refused. He left the flag exactly where it was, fluttering proudly each morning. The fine was not paid, and his quiet defiance sparked whispers along the block. Neighbors who had silently endured the HOA's constant pressure now began to take notice. By the end of the week, Karen stood smugly on her porch, certain the board would escalate the punishment. What she didn't realize was that her complaint had ignited a chain reaction that could not be stopped. The board doubled down. More fines followed, each one harsher than the last. Karen bragged loudly about how the resident would be forced into submission, and for a moment, it seemed like the HOA's grip remained strong. But behind the perfect hedges and closed blinds, something was stirring. Other neighbors began to see the flag not as a violation, but as a symbol. If one man could stand up to the HOA, maybe they could too. Quietly, in twos and threes, more flags appeared on porches and lawns. Different shapes, different colors, each one breaking the same rules Karen held so dearly. The sight enraged her. She stormed through the streets, clipboard shaking in her hands, as she wrote up violation after violation. She sent daily emails to the board, demanding action. But the flood of resistance was too much to contain. The more she tried to enforce, the more the neighborhood pushed back. Soon it wasn't just flags. Neighbors painted flower boxes in unapproved colors. They set out wind chimes, garden statues, and bold string lights. What had started as a single flag turned into a wave of rebellion, and the HOA was drowning under the weight of it. For Karen, this was personal. She stood at meetings shouting about chaos and disorder, but her voice no longer carried the power it once did. The room buzzed with energy, the board overwhelmed, and the residents unified in a way no one had ever seen before. The flag had become more than decoration. It had become a battle line, and for the first time the neighborhood stood on the other side of Karen's clipboard. By the time winter rolled in, the community looked nothing like it had before. Flags waved on nearly every house, bold splashes of color cutting through the uniform gray. The HOA kept issuing fines, but envelopes piled up unpaid, ignored, and forgotten. Karen fought harder than ever. She threatened, documented, and even called city officials. But each time she was met with the same response. It was not illegal. The HOA's power ended at the neighborhood line, and the residents had stopped listening. The turning point came at the year's final HOA meeting. The board gathered in the community center, expecting another round of complaints. Karen arrived early, binder stuffed with violation notices, her voice already sharpening for battle. But when the residents walked in, something remarkable happened. Nearly every family came carrying their own flag. They filled the room, color spilling across the walls, a silent message stronger than any speech. The board, overwhelmed and cornered, had no choice but to concede. The fines were dropped. The rules were rewritten. Flags were no longer banned. For the first time in years, the residents had claimed victory over the HOA's iron grip. Karen sat in stunned silence, her power shattered. The neighborhood she once ruled through fear now moved on without her. Her clipboard, once her weapon, meant nothing. And as the meeting ended, the resident who had started it all quietly walked home, his flag waving freely in the night air. The street, once sterile and uniform, now carried life, color, and unity. The HOA had tried to silence one man, but instead they had united an entire community.